In the whimsical realm of sitcom spin-offs and multiverse storytelling, a quirky and unexpected narrative unfolds. What if Leonard Hofstadter's first marriage, yes, the one that barely made it past a drunken Vegas night, had continued long enough to introduce a Sheldon replacement into the equation? Enter Julian Klein, a theoretical physicist with a dual PhD in string theory and neurophilosophy, a man who, much like Sheldon Cooper, is dangerously brilliant and almost unbearably difficult. When Leonard's brief first marriage to Joyce Kim, the North Korean spy from Season 2 lore, was reimagined in this hypothetical parallel series First Marriage, fans were stunned. But even more surprising was Julian, Joyce and Leonard's unexpected intellectual adoptee turned roommate. Julian, much like Sheldon before him, is a master of deduction, logic, and social obliviousness. He's not so much rude as he is ruthlessly efficient. Conversations with him are like walking into a quantum entanglement of unintended insults, unsolicited corrections, and blunt honesty. And therein lies the eerie connection. Julian shares Sheldon's worst trait: a complete, unfiltered detachment from emotional intelligence. The birth of a replacement genius. Julian's origin within the First Marriage universe begins with a postdoctoral fellowship at Caltech, where Leonard and Joyce, now awkwardly cohabiting after years of avoidance, find themselves collaborating with Julian on an international quantum encryption project. Due to a lab mishap involving helium-3 and a miscalibrated cryogenic array, Julian's apartment becomes uninhabitable. Joyce, ever the pragmatic one, offers him Leonard's spare bedroom. And so begins the recohabitation saga. From his first breakfast in the apartment, boiled eggs sorted by protein density, arranged in descending order of elasticity, Julian's demeanor radiates one familiar truth. He may be a new character, but his Sheldon-esque qualities are unmistakable. Echoes of Sheldon's worst habit. If Sheldon's worst trait was his brutal inability to grasp emotional nuance, Julian doesn't just echo it, he amplifies it. Whereas Sheldon's social blindness was rooted in Asperger-coded eccentricity and maternal indulgence, Julian stems from a fierce devotion to rational purity. To him, feelings are tolerable only when they serve a logical function. Grief, for instance, is a psychological inefficiency, while love is a statistically anomalous hormonal pattern. Take the infamous First Marriage episode, Quantum Sympathy, in which Joyce's mother passes away. The entire group gathers for emotional support, candles, comfort food, even Penny makes a crossover appearance to lend empathy. Julian enters the scene, glances around, and says, "Given that Mrs. Kim's existence has now statistically concluded, it seems inefficient to be investing more neurotransmitters into grieving than into preserving her digital legacy. Has anyone backed up her hard drive yet?" Needless to say, the room fell into shocked silence. Leonard, flabbergasted, tried to mitigate the awkwardness with nervous laughter. Joyce, torn between throwing Julian out and crying, chose to eat a cold spring roll in silence. The genius curse. Intelligence without empathy. It's no secret that shows like The Big Bang Theory often use characters like Sheldon as avatars for misunderstood brilliance. They're endearing in their awkwardness, comedic in their sincerity, and often shielded from criticism by their genius. But First Marriage pushes this trope further, daring to show what happens when there's no Penny, no Amy, no calming emotional translator. Julian is an unfiltered window into the dangers of intellect without compassion. He calculates people's utility like an algorithm. He critiques Leonard's research with the coldness of a peer-reviewed journal. He redesigns Joyce's spice rack, optimizing it for neurological flavor recall, ignoring the cultural significance behind its original design. In one episode, Julian hosts a truth dinner, where guests are encouraged to speak only empirical truths. What starts as a fun game turns brutal. He tells a guest their startup idea has a 93% chance of failure based on market projections. He tells Leonard he settled in both marriages due to fear of abandonment. He tells Joyce that statistically, their chances of long-term happiness are below median, especially factoring in your espionage history. By the end of the dinner, half the guests leave in tears. Julian genuinely doesn't understand what went wrong. A mirror to Sheldon, and a warning where Sheldon had endearing quirks to soften his sharper edges, his love of trains, his grudging affection for his friends. Julian lacks these emotional buffers. He's sharper, colder, less bound by social contracts. And that's what makes him such a fascinating and frustrating character. The writers of First Marriage seem to be holding a mirror up to Sheldon's worst tendencies, asking the audience, what happens when genius goes unchecked, when brilliance forgets to be human? Julian is the ultimate cautionary tale. For every viewer who chuckled at Sheldon's inability to apologize, Julian shows us the emotional wreckage of never learning how. For every laugh at a social faux pas, Julian delivers the consequence: alienation, miscommunication, and emotional fallout. Redemption, or regression. Yet, like all good sitcom arcs, there's hope. In the season finale, Joyce confronts Julian after a disastrous group therapy session, which he attended purely to critique the statistical success rates of therapy itself. She doesn't yell. She doesn't cry. She just sits down and says, "You don't have to feel everything, Julian, but you have to try, or no one will stay." There's a long pause. Julian, visibly processing, doesn't respond with his usual statistics. He simply nods and says, "That's a logically sound hypothesis." It's the first step. Final Thoughts' First Marriage offers more than an alternate timeline or comedic spin-off. It's a thoughtful deconstruction of Sheldon Cooper's archetype. Through Julian Klein, we see what happens when a mind like Sheldon's is replicated without emotional grounding. The laughs are still there, but so is the tension. So is the quiet sadness of brilliance left isolated. Julian may be a replacement genius, but he's no clone. He's a reflection, one that forces us to examine what we value not just in our TV heroes, but in ourselves. Intelligence is impressive, but empathy, that's what makes a genius human. If you'd like to explore this in a script format or expand on character arcs, let me know.